All right, we're going to begin tonight with a report on the attack at sea in the Gulf of Oman. Did you hear about this? This is the type of story that should cause alarm bells, ding, 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 to go off for anybody who has a sense of history or a sense of geopolitical Machiavellianism, if nothing else, that we should have gotten used to by now. 2 tankers were apparently attacked this morning in the Gulf of Oman, and one was Japanese. That's important. I'm going to tell you about that in a minute. So, like just within an hour of these reports, our Secretary of State, Mike Pompeo, hurries to the microphones where he appears on television to announce that all of our intelligence and all of our evidence points to Iran as the culprit, which, of course, the compliant news media in the United States repeats as gospel without any apparent pushback. And by the way, it may be completely true. Iran, of course, responds to this accusation, pointing out that the attack occurred while Iranian officials were having a historic and very friendly meeting. You saw it right here on our air with Japanese officials. So they're saying, why the hell would we bomb a ship that is Japanese when we're sitting here having a conversation with the Japanese prime minister? It's a question that's worth throwing into the mix, right? So let's get this started. We're going to begin our coverage tonight with RT producer and reporter Joseph Ricci.
2 massive oil tankers were struck in the Gulf of Oman earlier today. The attack occurred a few miles off the coast of Iran, close to the Strait of Hormuz, an economically and strategically vital waterway through which a third of the world's seaborne oil passes. According to Iran's Foreign Minister Javad Zarif, the ships were, quote, Japan-related, although being under the flags of Panama and the Marshall Islands and headed to Singapore and Taiwan. One of the vessels was reportedly struck by a torpedo. Iran has said it rescued 44 sailors, while the U.S. Navy has reported rescuing 21 crew members. The attack caused oil prices to rise 4% today and comes at an unusual time. Just a month ago, 4 ships, including 2 Saudi vessels, were damaged in the Persian Gulf. Also in mid-May, the Saudis reported a drone attack on an oil pipeline in the southwest of the country. More vitally, on Wednesday, Japan's Prime Minister Shinzo Abe arrived in Tehran for high-level talks. It was the first time in decades a Japanese PM visited Iran. In the United States, Secretary of State Mike Pompeo placed the blame firmly on Iran.
It is the assessment of the United States government that the Islamic Republic of Iran is responsible for the attacks that occurred in the Gulf of Oman today. This assessment is based on intelligence, the weapons used, the level of expertise needed to execute the operation, recent similar Iranian attacks on shipping, and the fact that no proxy group operating in the area has the resources and proficiency to act with such a high degree of sophistication.
Not everyone is convinced, however. Former Pentagon official Michael Maloof believes the attacks were meant to send a strong message.
There are no coincidences. I mean, this was all staged and was meant to send a message. The ships were not meant to be sunk, as I interpret things. And if you're going to try and look at what the cause was, go back to where the ships originated. Someone had to know what was the manifest, who the ship owners were. I mean, this had to be whoever had access to that kind of information could have planned this thing.
Now the world waits to see if the United States will respond with economic or military force against Iran for what, at the current moment, amounts to allegations, as no firm evidence of who conducted the attacks has been presented. Just last month, the U.S. committed another carrier group to the Persian Gulf, as threats of a war with Iran continue to linger.
That's Joseph Ricci reporting for us, and that is not Joseph Ricci. The man you're looking at right there is former U.S. diplomat Jim Jatras. We love having Jim on because, boy, he's perfect for a subject like this. Is there something wrong with wondering, as I am doing, and by the way, many other people are today, about whether we're being fed a line here as a result of what we see when our government says, oh, right away, Iran did this?
I think the rush to judgment should always be suspicious. Look, how many times have we seen this in the past, whether it was the gas attacks in Syria, as you mentioned, the Maine, Serb mortar attacks in Bosnia. Right away, when something is at the very least doubtful about what happened, we have not only the government sources, but the media rushing to pin the tail on the designated culprit under circumstances that seem awfully convenient, don't they? I mean, here, how many people have been saying that the rush to war toward Iran seems to be abating somewhat? We've got Abe going to Tehran. Maybe he's got a message from Trump. Maybe there's a first step to working things out, and then, bam, something happens. It's awfully convenient, and you say to yourself, all right, is it too convenient?
And there's something else involved here. In law school, they say you should be skeptical, try and resist being cynical. I almost argue that we can't help but be cynical as journalists in this situation. In fact, look at what I just said in my open that happened as a result of us not questioning those things. You could argue the Spanish-American War changed the world completely, as did the Vietnamese War, right?
Yeah.
And people did not question. We should question in these cases because the results can be dire.
I think the media in particular do have that duty. Of course, they're complicit rather than skeptical, not to mention cynical. And do these people deserve the benefit of the doubt? I don't think so. Not just from journalists, but from citizens. So where's the questioning? The only silver lining I can see here in this context from the media.
When you say hold on, but when you just said these people, when you say these people, do you particularly mean Pompeo and the ilk of other people who have preceded him, Iraq War, for example, or do you mean our leaders in general, anybody who happens to be Secretary of State?
Well, to start with, in the case of Mr. Bolton, for example, we're talking about the same people, aren't we? So, and he would not be the only one, I think. Look, the term deep state, unfortunately, has become a buzzword, but I think there is one. There is a methodology to all of this, and the media are part of that apparatus. They're complicit in it.
So you think a guy like Pompeo is working on behalf or doing things on behalf, whether he's doing complicitly or not, he wants to help Raytheon? Because that's where his buddies are. That's where his interests are?
I think it's much broader than that. Because remember, we also have the relationships with Israel, with Saudi Arabia, with the Gulf state. What the Iranian foreign minister calls the B team, Bibi, Bin Laden. Excuse me, Bin Laden. There's a slip of the tongue. Bin Salman, Bin Zayed, and Bolton that have an agenda here, and this furthers their agenda. Now, does that mean the Iranians did not do that? I can't say that for a fact. But where's the blowing the whistle? Time out. Let's find out what exactly happened. Here,
that's all.
Before we rush to judgment.
Iran may be completely guilty in this case. But the moment I see my Secretary of State come out and say, okay, they did it, and I got all the evidence. By the way, where's the evidence?
The silver lining, if there is one here, is that the mainstream media is so anti-Trump, so riven by Trump derangement syndrome, maybe they'll actually do their job for a change by saying, well, if they're saying it, it must be a lie, so let's question it.
They won't. On the other hand, they usually go the other way in this case, right?
Remember, in the case of Syria, when he struck Syria, they cheered him. One of the few times they cheered him. So I'm not counting on them to save the day.
Jim Jatras, a man who comes with passion. We can't get this guy off the set. You want to keep talking about this?
You betcha.
Call me after the show. I'm Rick Sanchez. You found us on YouTube, and that's awesome. But you know what? I'm also live every night at 7 and 8 p.m. Eastern on DirecTV and Dish and cable and satellite, the RT app, and Pluto TV. I'll see you there.